This is not justice. On July 2nd, 2025, after 7 weeks of incredibly graphic testimony, Sean Combs was found not guilty of racketeering and trafficking. As a trafficking survivor myself, I was devastated by this verdict because of the ongoing implications for women and men who are victims of this type of coercive control. The world is less safe today for all of us, but especially for anyone who has been trafficked or assaulted. This verdict sends a clear message to perpetrators. Even if they catch you on video, you won't do time. It also sends a clear message to victims. Even if you have mountains of evidence, you won't get justice. An interview with an alternate juror the same day as the verdict clarified that in this federal case, Sean Combs was not charged with domestic violence for the beating on the infamous video, because DV is not a federal crime. That charge should have been brought by the California Attorney General. According to Tim Jansen, a former federal prosecutor, he said that the California AG should resign or be fired for not bringing those charges. And Christy Greenberg, a former SDNY Criminal Division deputy chief, stated that when police initially investigated the Continental Hotel incident, Cassie would not say who the perpetrator was in the video, but added that police don't need the victim's cooperation when there is video evidence. Cassie Ventura filed a civil lawsuit against Sean Combs in 2023, alleging trafficking, SA, and physical abuse. Sean Combs settled the suit the next day, paying out $20 million without batting an eye. So how is it possible that this jury was able to acquit Combs on the same charges after just 13 hours of deliberations? That same alternate juror described another video shown at trial, which was graphic in nature and depicted an X act, which he said didn't look forced. This alternate juror also took over 350 pages of notes during the 7-week trial and explained that there were text messages presented by the defense that indicated levels of consent with the encounters. He stated that he understood the verdict and likely would have found the same as his fellow jurors. After analyzing Ventura's 20 hours of grueling, explicit, and sometimes traumatizing testimony, and then weighing it against the federal indictment and the jury instructions, this insight into the juror's mind tells me that at a minimum, even with jury instructions, there's still a lot of confusion about what trafficking is and what it isn't. And it's very clear that among these jurors, and likely in the entire population, there's a total lack of understanding about what happens to someone when they are under the influence of coercive control. Over the course of Ventura's testimony, she stated a minimum of 10 separate times that she did not want to participate in the freak-offs or comply with Combs-related demands, citing feelings of humiliation, fear of violence, and lack of agency. According to the jury instructions, they would have had only to find one instance in the hundreds of these sessions that was constituted as trafficking in order to find Combs guilty. So what went wrong? If you're here with me, I hope you'll stay to learn and share this with your family and friends who care about you. It's essential that everyone understand the meaning of this outcome so that we can end sexual violence and start holding perpetrators accountable. First, let's understand that a freak-off, according to Ventura, was an arranged meeting between her and a hired prostitute, which would give Combs an opportunity to watch her, quote, perform. She detailed how Combs would require her to prepare for these sessions, dictating her manicure style and color, her hairstyle or a wig, her body hair removal, and her wardrobe, including shoes and underwear. He would tell her whom to hire, including detailed descriptions of physical features he preferred, and she would have to hire the workers, book hotel reservations, and arrange for elaborate supplies, including food, drugs, various types of lubrication, and accessories. Ventura testified that these sessions occurred all over the world at Combs and her various houses and in hotels. Sometimes the sessions could last days at a time, and Combs would contact her in advance to let her know how to prepare, including having staff drop off different types of drugs for her to take. Text messages presented in court detailed that he would direct her what time to take which pills, sometimes with alcohol, and that he would expect her to arrive ready to perform. Combs and Ventura met in 2005 when she was 19, and as an aspiring artist, Combs signed her to his record label, Bad Boy Records. At the time, he was 37, making him 17 years her senior. On her 21st birthday, Ventura testified that Combs got her alone and kissed her. She was naive about relationships and confused because at the time, Combs was involved with Kim Porter. But by this time, Cassie noted that Combs was pursuing her aggressively, offering career support and mentorship which blurred professional and personal boundaries. This is one of the first tactics of abusers, and it's often referred to as love bombing. The abuser will make grand declarations of love and gestures of gift and offer exciting dates, causing the victim to imagine a sense of closeness and attachment that doesn't actually exist. Cassie described the early phase of it as exciting, but said that Combs's control emerged quickly, with him dictating aspects of her career, appearance, and social interactions. She testified that she recorded hundreds of songs, but most of them were not released, and therefore she wasn't making much money. Of course, as the owner of the label, it was Combs who decided everything about her career, including which songs got released and when. This is the second tactic abusers use to gain control over a relationship. They'll provide something essential like employment, housing, or access to necessities. The victim usually sees it as a gesture of kindness, but it makes the victim dependent on them in a way that the abuser can exert an enormous amount of control over them. By 2008, Combs' behavior became even more controlling, including monitoring her phone and isolating her from friends and family. She felt trapped due to her financial and professional dependence on Combs, as he was now providing her housing in addition to managing her music career. She described that the first freak-off occurred around this time. Cassie testified that she didn't want to engage in these acts, which made her feel disgusting and humiliated, but she participated out of fear of his temper or career repercussions. These threats were detailed in text between the two, and I hope that you're starting to see the pattern of coercive control emerging. In a 2009 text message shown during trial, Cassie wrote, quote, "I'm always ready to freak off." Unfortunately, this was used by the defense to suggest willingness. Cassie clarified this was just words, and it was sent to please Combs, indicating that she felt she had to mask her reluctance because of the pressure to comply. She also testified that Combs' physical abuse began during this period, including hitting and verbal berating, which intensified her fear of refusing his demands. She indicated that it wasn't just Combs she was concerned about. She said that if they fought or she wanted a break from his calls and texts, which came in nonstop most of the day, Combs would direct staff to keep calling until she answered and even track down her physical location and direct her to answer the calls and texts. A 2012 text exchange was highlighted where Combs asked if she wanted to freak off for the last time. And Cassie responded, quote, "I don't want to freak off for the last time. I'd rather not do it at all." This underscored her ongoing reluctance, so she felt unable to refuse due to his reactions. At this point, Combs became increasingly volatile, with Cassie describing a cycle of abuse followed by affection and then more manipulation. Combs' control over her life tightened, and the freak-offs continued, numbering in the hundreds of encounters, again lasting sometimes for days. During this time, Combs also began recording the sessions, telling Cassie he was only recording himself, but she later learned that he was in fact recording her because he showed the recordings to her, once even reviewing the videos on a commercial flight where other passengers could see. He threatened to release the recordings if she didn't comply. She stated, quote, "I wasn't supposed to be on those videos. I didn't want to be in them." A pivotal incident occurred in 2016 at the Intercontinental Hotel in Los Angeles. Cassie said that she suggested a freak-off before her movie premiere to do damage control and please Combs. She didn't want to engage in a freak-off, but she knew Combs would probably suggest one. She stated that she didn't want to be messed up for her premiere. When the prosecutor asked her to explain, she detailed that the sessions would leave her dehydrated and sleep-deprived because she had to remain awake for the entire session, even if it lasted several days. This behavior reflects strategic compliance to avoid worse outcomes, but to people who know nothing about coercive control, a suggestion like this is sometimes viewed as consent, even though it's clearly not. The alternate juror who was interviewed noted that the infamous video from March 2016 was shown multiple times in court, sometimes even frame by frame. In the video, which I won't show here, Cassie can be seen hurrying down a hotel hallway wearing a hooded coat and no shoes, carrying a bag. She turns a corner, approaching a bank of elevators. Next, we see Sean Combs running so fast his knees are high, holding a white towel around him with one hand. He turns the corner into the bank of elevators to find Cassie bent over, picking up her belongings off of the floor. He grabs her by the back of the hood and violently slams her backward to the ground before kicking her, picking up her belongings, and dragging her back down the hallway. Cassie testified that this was just one instance in a pattern of violence that lasted for their entire relationship. After this incident, Cassie briefly left Combs, but they reconciled. She testified that his apologies and promises to change, coupled with her dependency, pulled her back, illustrating the trauma bond and her fear of losing her career. The mental and emotional effects of coercive control profoundly shape a victim's behavior, particularly in the context of trafficking allegations like those against Combs. These effects explain why victims may appear to consent to acts like participating in the freak-offs while under duress, which is legally irrelevant according to the law if force, fraud, or coercion is proven. Coercive control creates a pervasive environment of fear, dependency, and diminished autonomy, leading to profound psychological and emotional impacts such as fear and anxiety, erosion of self-esteem and identity, learned helplessness, depression and emotional numbing, trauma bonding, cognitive distortion and confusion, dependency and isolation. The behaviors we see from victims experiencing this kind of control can include compliance to avoid harm, impaired autonomy, trauma-driven loyalty, distorted risk assessment, and survival through dissociation. The jury instructions for these charges would have emphasized that force, fraud, or coercion negates consent, and coercive control's psychological impact aligns with this standard. As far as proving the elements of trafficking, the government needed to prove three things, and I apologize that I keep having to use coded language because of the platform that we're on. First is the act of trafficking, that Combs knowingly recruited, enticed, harbored, transported, provided, obtained, or maintained Cassie to engage in a commercial X act. Her testimony certainly supported that Combs recruited, enticed, transported, and maintained her to engage in freak-offs. Second is means. He used force, fraud, or coercion to cause her to engage in the commercial act. Again, her testimony supported that. And three, knowledge. Combs had to know that force, fraud, or coercion would be used. The federal statute includes a fourth element, not necessary in state cases, and it's that of interstate commerce, which is travel or communication across state lines. And these sessions happen all over the world. The key term in the language is commercial X act, defined in the legal code as, quote, any X act on account of which anything of value is given or received by any person. And in United States v. Marcus, case law clarified that the commercial aspect focuses on the exchange of value, not who receives it. This means that the value can be exchanged with anyone involved in the transaction, including the trafficker, a third party, or another participant, not necessarily the victim. In this case, the workers who were hired received compensation for their appearance. Each one of these sessions would absolutely qualify under the law. But the prosecution argued that these were commercial X acts because Combs provided, quote, things of value. For example, drugs, travel, housing, and career promises to facilitate the acts. Cassie's testimony indicated she received no direct payment, but was coerced through promises of career advancement and financial support. For example, housing. The fact that she did not personally receive a tangible benefit is irrelevant under the law, as the statute allows the value to be received by others, such as Combs, who allegedly gained gratification or recordings, or escorts who were paid. So understanding all of these elements and the law, why was he still acquitted? Several people in the profession have suggested that the state overcharged Combs, but when you listen to the alternate juror, he said that the defense was compelling, and at least one of the witnesses wasn't credible on cross-examination. And even though he believed Cassie and the fact that she had already received a settlement didn't matter, he said that the videos they were shown, which were explicit, didn't seem forced and seemed, quote, very consensual. Ultimately, he said he just didn't believe trafficking had taken place, and he would probably have come to the same determination as the jury, not guilty. Now, I haven't watched all of the trial because I had other things going on, so I can't say whether the defense was just that good or whether the prosecution wore the jury out with too many videos. But I suspect the fundamental flaw in the prosecution was not focusing on the elements of coercive control that cause someone to appear consensual and the psychological impact of this type of devastating abuse. With dozens of civil cases pending against and the possibility of more victims coming forward, prosecutors should take note and use this verdict as a lesson. If you're interested in learning more about manipulation and control and how to defend against it, you can visit my website for my e-course and one-on-one coaching at third-verse.com. Please subscribe for more deep dives on true crime, and please share this video with someone you care about.